the thing which we will be doing today. So today I'm going to show you an implementation which we actually follow in the industry, where we actually do not use a start message event. We actually use an intermediate receiving message event to receive a message from another process. Okay, very important implementation that we are going to do today, because going ahead on the basis on the same implementation, you have to implement a use case. Okay, so we'll start doing the implementation. So right now, guys, if you can see my screen, I have opened the undercover agent, which is event based, which we created yesterday. And if you see the details here, we were using variable, and I had mapped a business object called message, right? Now, the question is, should we go ahead with the same variable, same business object now? So I'm going to show you with a different implementation today. I'm going to use service, okay, which is something which we use in the industry. And yesterday I had said you the work of this service is just to pass the input to the output. That's it, right? So I'm going to create my own service here. How can I create a new service? Simply I can use this new option and I can create my own service flow. People can use this same service over here, default BPD event, if they're using only correlation key and value. But if you want to use more, then definitely you can add more parameters to it. Okay, so in that case you have to create your own service. So I will show you by creating a new service, and I'm not going to use the existing one. Okay, so either I can go here on the left hand side, I have the services options, and from here I can create a service flow. Else I can also create a service from here. Okay, so I will create it from here. I will name it as UCA handler. I click on finish. The service will be created. If I go to variables, I don't have anything, so I can add new variables over here. So I'm going to add something like this. Okay, correlation key and value will be the two inputs. Value will actually have the message which I want to pass from one process to another process. And correlation key, the significance of correlation key, guys, yesterday we discussed. So if someone can explain me what is the significance of correlation key for an event based UCA or even for a time based UCA? Can someone explain? Okay, I'll go to Srinidhi.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Srinidhi, so what is the work of correlation key?
It's a kind of input to be given.
Yes, that is true. So
Yes.
it's a kind of input, but there is some significance of this correlation key we discussed yesterday.
I don't remember, Rahul. I need to go through the section. I think it would be like to check something for a receiver, to check for the receiver.
Okay. So once again, I'll go back to the old example. So here we have process one, and we have here process two. Here we have an undercover agent. Undercover agent goes to process one, picks up the message, picks up the correlation key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this undercover agent now goes to process 2 to deliver the message. If he finds that the correlation key is matching in both process 1 and process 2, then only he will deliver the message to process 2. That is the significance of correlation key. If the correlation key is matching, then only the message will be delivered, else it will not be delivered.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, we are good with correlation key, because it is a very important thing, And going ahead, whatever implementations you guys will be doing in your projects, correlation key is going to be a very key, uh, I would say a very key factor for implementing a UCA, especially an event-based UCA, whenever you are trying to pass some message or pass some information from one process to another process. Without a correlation key, this cannot be done. Yes, we did it yesterday. You know the reason why we could do it yesterday? Because we were using start message event instead of an intermediate receiving message event. Whenever I'm going to use an intermediate receiving message event today, I have to use the correlation key. Okay, otherwise the message will not be delivered over there. So I'll go back and I have added this input correlation key and value, and I would add output as well. Correlation key, out value. Okay, so now yesterday, like I was saying you, whatever input we will receive, I just need to pass that to this output, right? So how can I do that? We know it. We have something called script. So I'm going to drag a server script over here. Okay, map values. So I'm just going to go to the script and do nothing, just write few lines like this. Okay, so I hope you guys can understand what does this mean. In very simple way I have written, I am just passing whatever I'm getting as an input in the correlation key and value. I am just passing it as an output to the output variables. That's it. Okay, so this is the thing which we actually implement inside service flow, which we are mapping with a UCA. This kind of code, nothing more than that. We don't write any complex logic over here, guys. Okay, UCA is not made for writing complex logic in the services. We write very simple logic. So I'll save it here. I'll now go back to our UCA just to see if everything is mapped correctly. So I can see here it is mapped correctly. UCA handler, I am using synchronous queue 1, which is fine. For event-based UCA, using a synchronous queue is absolutely fine. It is enabled as well, this UCA. So we are good with this UCA. We are done with the implementing of this UCA, right? Now, what I will do, yesterday, we created some process, right? Sender and receiver. So I will go to the receiver process and I'm going to change few implementation over here. Today, I'm not going to use any start message event. I'm going to use a simple or a none start event. Okay. And somewhere over here, I am going to add my intermediate receiving message event so that I can receive the message and I can display it in this user task. Okay. So before I add an intermediate receiving message event, I need to do some modification, some very simple modification. What is that? I'll go to variables. I don't need this message business object because we are not using it today. I will delete it. Location also I will delete. I will add something called correlation key. And I would also add one more parameter called value. Okay. Similar way, I will go to my sender process. Here also we were using this message business object. I would not use this anymore. I will just use correlation key and I would add another parameter called value. Now the basic thing which we are trying to implement here, guys, whatever value or whatever data is stored in this parameter value, this is actually the message which I want to pass from sender process to receiver process. So sender process will have some default value which I need to pass it to the receiver process. And who will act in between? UCA will act in between. UCA will pick up this message and deliver it to the receiver process. But on the basis of which parameter it will deliver? It will deliver on the basis of correlation key. Okay, understood the use case? Anybody has any doubt on the use case? Please let me know right now. I'll explain once again. Okay, so we have two process, sender process and receiver process. Our aim is to pass the value from sender to receiver. Now this value, you guys can tell me that Rahul, we are using a simple variable here, right? It's a string. Instead of string, can we use a complex variable here? The answer is yes, we can use. I could have used the message business object over here as well. Not an issue. So the UCA, what it will do, it will pick this value from the sender and it will deliver the message value to the receiver. Now, who will act in between? Yes, the UCA will act in between. And on the basis of which parameter? Correlation key. If the correlation key of process 1 is equal to the correlation key of process 2, then only the UCA will deliver the message. Otherwise, it will not deliver the message. Okay. So now, can we add some default value to this correlation key and value for our POC? So I can do it over here. So correlation key can be say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We will discuss more guys about this correlation key after the implementation. So right now I'm just adding some static value. Usually correlation key can have some dynamic value also. Okay, I'll just give you examples later on. Now coming to the value. Value is say how are you, which we were using yesterday. Okay, now similar way I will go to the I'll go to the definition of the sender process. Here also we need to do some change because we had changed the implementation of our UCA undercover event based UCA. Now we'll go to data mapping. Here data mapping is required. So I will just map these variables. That's it. Okay, my sender process is done. Now I will go to my receiver process. Receiver process value, obviously I'm not going to add some default value because this is something which we will receive from the sender. And for the correlation key, definitely I have to add a value. Same value I will add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I will also show you with a different correlation key and we'll see whether the message gets delivered or not. Okay, that also we will see. All right, going back to the definition here, data mapping is definitely required. Okay, now we'll do some change. I'm going to add an intermediate receiving message event over here. Just change the name so that people can understand receive message. And in the implementation, the UCA is not attached. So I'm going to attach this UCA undercover event based, and condition we don't need. And we have something new called durable subscription, which we didn't have before, right? Start message event did not have this option, durable subscription. It only had consume message, right? So what is durable subscription? Let's understand. Okay, then we will complete the implementation. Now consume message everybody is aware of. If we have multiple intermediate events, if you have multiple receiving events, then in that case, if I enable consume message at any event, at any IME, that is intermediate receiving event, then in that case, if there are some more intermediate events after this, then they will not receive this message. because the message is already been consumed by the first intermediate receiving message event that we have learned yesterday regarding consume message. Now, what is durable subscription? Now, if you see the diagram carefully, guys, this process does not have a start message event. It has a start event followed by an intermediate receiving message event, and then we have some user task, which means it is clear that this process cannot be triggered automatically, right? I have to trigger it manually. Maybe through some startable service, maybe through some Ajax service, I can trigger this process using maybe start process by name. Now, just think what will happen if I trigger this process right now. The token will actually wait over here. It will wait in this intermediate receiving message event. Why? Because it will wait for some message to come. Once the message is delivered, then only it will move forward to this user task. Otherwise, it will not move. Okay. So the token will always wait over here until and unless the message gets delivered, it will not move forward. Now, just think of a scenario. Somehow the server went down. The UC has picked up the message in the sender process. Now it is about to deliver the message to the receiver process, right? Now say the process, this receiver process has been triggered and the token is waiting over here to receive the message. And somehow the server has gone down. Now what will happen? Will the message be lost? Yes, there are chances that the message can get lost. So that the message never gets lost, we have something called durable subscription, which will secure that message. If I enable this, UCA will add an extra layer of security on that message. It will keep a copy of that message in the queue, that even if the main message gets lost, I still have a copy and I can deliver that to the receiver process. I'll give one more example, a real-time example, which is much more logical. This process will be triggered by someone, right? Now say the sender process has already been triggered. Say it has been triggered on 15th of October and the UCA has picked up the message from the sender and it has kept the message in the queue. It is waiting that when this message will be triggered, then only I will deliver the message over here. Today is 20th of October. Still nobody has triggered this process. And the UCA is still waiting with that message to deliver it over here. Even after 10 days also, the UCA will still wait. If this process is never triggered, it will still wait with that message. And why it will still wait? Why that message will never be lost? Because again, I have enabled durable subscription. If I don't enable durable subscription, there is definitely a chance that the UCA will not understand after 10 days which message I need to deliver in this process. So the fact is, if you are implementing intermediate receiving message event at any point of time in the receiver process, always you have to enable durable subscription, always. We need to eradicate out this concept where the message can be lost by the UCA. It will not store the message properly in the queue. There can be a chance. So to avoid that risk, we always enable durable subscription in the receiver process. Understood? Everybody, what is durable subscription? Any doubts or questions, guys, you have on durable subscription, please let me know. Okay, we are good. All right. Yes. Anybody has any question? Okay. So, we have this durable subscription which is enabled. Now, what we need to do? Data mapping. Definitely, we have to do data mapping. Now, guys, see here, the data mapping is bit different than what we have seen yesterday, right? Because we were using start message event, and for the start message event, the data mapping was very simple. We just need to map whatever was coming from the UCA, we just need to map here. But here, there is an extra security. We have to tell the UCA that which variable in this process will work as a correlation key. So Suleiman is about to deliver a message to Krishnaraj. He has gone to his house. Now he has to find out, Suleiman has to find out that out of all the factors, out of all the things in Krishnaraj's house, which one is actually the correlation key. If he finds that yes, this is the correlation key, if it is matching, then only he will deliver the message to Krishnaraj. Otherwise, he will not. Okay. So here in the data mapping, we need to identify which one is the correlation key over here. So this is the correlation key. I will just map it over here. Similarly, here you see, whenever I map this correlation key, initially when it was like this, select a variable, see both these parameters have an arrow right next to it. Whenever I make this as a correlation key, automatically this becomes equal to, and this one is still an arrow. Why? Basically it is like an if else or an if statement. If this correlation key is matching with whatever I add here, then only this value will be delivered. Okay, so here I can simply write tw dot local dot correlation key. If both this match, so this one is coming from the sender process, right? And this one is the variable of my receiver process. If both this value matches, then only I will get this value. Okay, we are good with the data mapping. Out of whatever we have implemented since day before yesterday, this is the most important, and this is actually the most complex. I mean, I hope I'm making it very simple to you guys, uh, but it's actually true that this is the most complex implementation of out of all whatever we have done on events. Okay, so anywhere if you face any doubt, please let me know. Ram Kumar, we are good.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay, good. All right, so now what else we need to do? Definitely I want to display this value in a user task. Okay, so what I will do, I have to change this user task, this human service which we created yesterday. So what I will do, I'll again create a new one, and this time I'll give some names. Say display value. Click on next. Correlation key I don't need, because it is just to use in the process layer so that the UCA can deliver the message. So I don't need this as an input or output. But value definitely I need, because I want to display the value in the coach. So I would just add it as an input variable, and I click on finish. So again, this is my coach. So automatically everything will be there. I have the value, I have my coach, and I would have this coach view also ready with the value. So now I'll straight away go to my receiver process. So we are good with this implementation as well. We are good with this user task. So data mapping is also there. Everything is there. All right. So I'll save the changes. Both my receiver process as well as my sender process is ready. My UCA has been mapped properly in both those processes. Okay. So what I will do, I will trigger this receiver process first. Okay. I will make the token wait over here, and then I will trigger the sender process. Once the sender process is triggered, once the message is picked up by the UCA, it will come here in the receiver process. It will see whether the token is waiting on any IME, on any intermediate event. Yes, if it finds that yes, some token is waiting, it will straight away deliver the message. and automatically the token will move forward to the display activity. Okay, this is what we will do. So first I will trigger this receiver process. So you can see, everyone can see the token is waiting right now on the top of this intermediate receiving message event, right? Still now there is no message. Now I'll go back to my sender process. So sender process will now be triggered and that message will be picked up from here by the UCA. So I will trigger this sender process now. Okay, you can see here on the right hand side, sender process is completed, which means some message has been created. How are you is the value which we are passing to the receiver. So now if I go back to the receiver process, okay, I'll not be able to see it from here. I will go to the inspector. Now see here guys, receiver process, this is the one which I triggered today morning, right? Now where it is active, you can see the token has now moved forward and has moved forward to this display activity. Okay, now let us see whether the value has really reached this process or not. I'll try to open this. I'll try to claim the task. How are you? Okay. Any doubts? Any concern on how this UCA worked or how this receiver process worked? Please let me know. We'll discuss. Okay.
Rahul, can you explain the trigger process once
Trigger
in
process.
receiving section?
Yeah, sure. So, okay, I'll explain once again from the beginning, okay, for the receiver process. So we are starting with the start event, a non-start event. Followed by that, we have this receive message, which is nothing but the intermediate receiving message event, which will receive the message from the UCA whenever there is some message to be delivered. Followed by that, we have this display activity, which I'm using just to display the message or value, which is coming from sender process. And followed by that, we have an end event, right? Now, what happens over here? I triggered the receiver process. The token went ahead and was waiting in this receive message or intermediate receiving message event. Why it was waiting? It was waiting for some message to be delivered. It was waiting whether till the time the UCA will deliver the message, it will wait over here. The moment the UCA delivers the message, it will get the message, it will move forward to this user task. Okay. Now the question is how this UCA delivered the message, because there is something called correlation key. Both the correlation key of my sender and receiver is matching. That's the reason it would deliver the message. Now we'll see one implementation now. If somehow this correlation key does not match, what will happen? Will the message be still be delivered? The answer is no. Okay, so I will run this process once again and I'll show you guys. But before I do so, are we good with this implementation?
Yeah, Rahul. Yes, Rahul. Yes, Rahul.
Yes, Rahul.
Okay. All right, so now I will once again trigger this receiver process. Now we have a different correlation key, guys. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. And if I show you the correlation key of my sender process, it is definitely different. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the correlation key is not matching, right? So let us see whether the message will still be delivered over here. So I triggered this receiver process, guys, and the token is once again waiting over here. Now let me go back and trigger the sender process. Completed. Sender process is completed. The UC has picked up this message, how are you? And also the correlation key. Now let's see whether the receiver process has been triggered or not. You see this receiver process definitely triggered, but it is still waiting over here. Receive message. It did not move to the next activity. It is still waiting because the UCA did not deliver the message. Okay. So only when the correlation key will match, then only it will deliver the message. Otherwise, it will not deliver. Okay. So you can understand the importance of correlation key. The reason why I'm telling this over and over again, if somehow the correlation key does not match, in that case, your process will never move forward, guys. Okay. So we need to make sure that the correlation key should match, and there should not be any stop, at least on the IM. Okay. Now we'll discuss few more points on this correlation key because this is the most important thing. Now I showed you guys a POC by adding some default value 1 2 3 4 5 6 like this. Usually we don't use it like this, right? So correlation key in a real-time project is a dynamic variable. What do I mean by dynamic? I'll give an example. Correlation key, I can map the instance ID in the correlation key. Same way, I can pass this value. How I can pass this value? We have seen something called map object. Now say I have a receiver process, I have a sender process. Now receiver process will trigger the sender process automatically. Okay. Receiver process will have a script after the start event where I am going to write the map object, and I am going to pass the correlation key also as an input to the sender process. Now see, sender process has a correlation key value. Receiver process also has a correlation key value. Now going forward, after script in the receiver, I have that intermediate receiving message event, which we have it right now, right? So now the process one, that is my sender process, will be triggered. It's already triggered actually, and already some message has been passed by the UCA. Now both this process will have the same correlation key value because we are using input or map object to pass the value from process 2 to process 1. Okay, so let's see how we can make this a bit dynamic. So instead of using a static value for correlation key, let's see if I can do it in a bit dynamic way. Okay, so here correlation key we are using. Before this, I will add a script. Till now, what we were doing, we were manually triggering the sender process, right? I was first triggering this receiver process manually, and then I was going back to the sender, and again I was running it manually. So now I'm not going to run the sender process manually. Okay. So trigger sender process. I'm not explaining this because you guys must be knowing we have done this a lot of time, right? What is map object? What is start process by name? We have done this before. Okay. So all of you, we are good with this code. What does this code mean? First, I'm initializing the map object using this parameter input. In this input, what I am passing? I am passing the correlation key, which I am populating over here to the sender process, right? Because I'm using start process by name, and this is the process which I'm triggering from here and which will have this input value. This input will have this correlation key, right? Now, let's populate this correlation key in a dynamic way. So this correlation key will now have the instance ID of this process, and it will pass this value where to the sender process. Now just think, sender process will also have the same value which we are populating in the receiver process, right? And then only the UCA will deliver the message if both this value is matching. The reason why I'm showing this implementation, to show you how we can dynamically populate a correlation key. Till now, I was going to the variables and adding some default value. That is just for the POC purpose, just to show you guys how we can, with minimal effort, how we can implement this entire execution, this entire implementation. But here, what we are doing, we are populating the correlation key in a dynamic way, and then we are passing this correlation key where to the main process, that is the sender process. Okay, so I'll save the change. I'll now go back to the sender process. Okay, before going to the sender, I will remove this default value because it is not required anymore. Similar way, I'll go to the sender process here, and in the sender process also I will remove this default value. And what else? We no, we are good. So we'll go back to the receiver process here, and just want to make sure everything is correct here. Okay. All right. So now what I'll do, I'll first, let me just go back and delete everything else. Just a moment. Just to make sure there is no confusion, I will delete all these instances. One more thing was required. Deleting all the old instances just to show you guys from fresh now. Usually, like I said you guys before also, usually if I'm passing some value from one process to another process using start process by name, like in this case we are passing the correlation key, right? So this correlation key should be added as an input variable in this process, right? We discussed this before. If you remember Ajax service, we had implemented that Ajax service will be triggering a process, remember, using start process by name. And we had something called employee information. If you remember, we had something called employee information which we are passing from the Ajax service to the process, and we added that employee information where as an input variable to that process, right? So usually if you're passing some value using the start process by name, that value should be added as an input variable in the sender process. Okay, that's an ideal case. Usually, even if it is in the private variable, still it will work. But ideally, we should always add it as an input variable because it is coming as an input, right? From some other component, maybe a service flow where I've written some code. Maybe it's another process where I've written some code on the start process by name. So in that case, we have to add this as an input variable. So what I'll do, I'll just delete this variable and I will add it as an input variable. Okay, so this much is required, this much change is required. Now I will trigger this receiver process, which will first trigger the sender process, and then it will wait over here. This it will wait for the message to come. Now sender process will be triggered automatically. The message also will be delivered, or the UC will also pick up the message, and then it will deliver it over here. So basically, you also can understand we are also removing the manual things over here. I am not going and triggering the sender process manually. It is automatically getting triggered through the script, right? And in that case, sender will populate that message already. UC will pick up that message. UC will now come here. It will see that the token is waiting over here. It will deliver the message and the token will move forward. Okay, same implementation, only I am trying to use a dynamic correlation key, and I am also removing the manual effort to trigger the sender process separately. Okay, so let us trigger the receiver process. Token is waiting over here, right? I should not do anything. If I refresh, it should move forward, guys. You see, it moved forward. Let me know if this implementation is a bit complicated. I can see Abhinesh uh, just trying to pat his head. Maybe he's a bit confused. Any
Rahul,
confusion, guys?
yeah, Rahul, can you repeat the last time? How it's even refresh, it's all promptly
Yes,
going to
yes.
the next task.
Yes, I will. Anybody has any other doubt?
Rahul, I have a doubt on why this in
Hmm.
sender process, why correlation
Hmm.
key is input.
Hmm. We'll discuss. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I'll repeat the implementation once again from the beginning. Okay. So, okay, just forget about this implementation. What we did before, we had a sender process, we had a receiver process. In the sender process, I had a correlation key variable. In the receiver process, I had the same correlation key variable. What we were doing before, I was adding some static value to it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Similarly, in the receiver also, I was adding that same default value. That was just a POC, guys. I was trying to show you. Ideally, correlation key, you have to populate in a way that both in the sender and the receiver, it has the same value, but it will be dynamic. Just think, guys, whatever implementation we did just now, if once again I trigger another process, again, if I trigger this receiver process, the correlation key will change again, right? It will have the new instance ID value, but the same instance ID value I'm again passing to the sender process also. So in a way, I am keeping the correlation key as dynamic, and I'm also making sure that I pass the value to the sender process also, the same value I am passing to the sender process also, right? So this is about the implementation. I'll once again explain what I did just now. In this receiver process, what we had done before, this correlation key, we had added some default value, right? So I removed that dependency. What I did in this script, I added this code. I hope I don't have to explain this code. We all know what we are doing. In the first line, we are populating the instance ID of this process. Whenever this process will be triggered, the system variable will always have the instance ID. It will capture and it will pass it to the correlation key. Line number 2 to 4, I believe we are good. I don't have to explain. Using map object and using start process by name, I am passing the value, the correlation key value to the sender process, as well as I am also triggering the sender process. Now, when I'm using start process by name, you can understand I am removing the manual effort to trigger the sender process separately, right? So we are using to trigger the sender process as well as to pass the value. Now going back to the sender process now. Why I added this as an input variable? Question is, can we have this variable as a private and still the value will be delivered using start process by name? The answer is yes. It will still deliver the message. Correlation key will still get the value from the receiver process. But I am talking about best practice here. If you're getting a value using map object start process by name, then definitely that variable I should add as an input variable. If I remove this input and add it as a private, will it fail? Will the value not come? No, the value will still come. The process will not fail. I am showing you from the best practice perspective. Okay. Now, what will happen when the first script will run in the receiver process? This process will be triggered automatically. This send message event or intermediate sending message event will have the value which I'm already populating over here, right? How are you? And now it will pass this message where to the UCA. The UCA will pick up the message, and what the UCA will do, usually it will wait over here at this point, right? So there will be token will be waiting for here over here. So whenever the UCA will have the message and it will come to the receiver process to deliver the message, it will see that the token is already waiting. It will deliver the message and automatically the token will move forward. That is what the entire implementation is. If this implementation is clear, then we have another use case ready. Okay, so make sure there is no confusion at this point. If you have any questions on whatever we have done till now, please ask me. Okay, because going forward, I mean, I don't want to hear that I have given a use case and people are coming that we are still not able to understand. So if you have any questions in your mind, I'm giving you some time, think, and then you can ask me question. Take 5 minutes. Just think whatever we have done, and then you can ask me question.
Rahul, can we have a multiple receiver process with the same correlation key?
Yes, we can have.
So then if we enable consume message on like all receiver processes, then what will happen?
I mean, logically, it is not correct, right? I mean, I have
Yeah.
multiple intermediate receiving message event and I enable consume message for all. Still, the message will be delivered only on the first one. The rest will
Okay.
not get any
So,
message.
okay.
Instead, if you do it in this way, say we have this intermediate receiving message event over here, and say after this task, again, we have an intermediate receiving message event. Now I did not enable consume message over here, and I enable consume message over here. What will happen? Then this will get the message, and here the IME which I will add, that will also get the message. But going forward, if there is any other intermediate receiving message event, it will not receive the message.
No, I didn't get you. Can you repeat once again?
Okay, I'll repeat once again. Say we have, say, 3 intermediate receiving message events in the receiver process. Okay, this is the first one. Say we did not enable consume message for this IME. So this is IME 1. Okay, now say we have another IME after this display task. We have IME 2. Over there, I have enabled consume message. Then again, I have another user task. After that, I have IME 3, where again, it doesn't matter consume message enabled or disabled. Now what will happen here? The receiver process, it will populate the message, it will pass it through the UCA. The UCA will come here, it will deliver the message over here. It will move forward to this display task, and then there will be one more IME, that is IME 2, where the consume message has been enabled. It will also deliver the same message over here. If we have another IME at the end, IME 3, it will not get the message. Why? Because the previous IME, we have enabled consume message. Are we good?
Yes, Rahul.
Okay. Any other doubts, guys? People who have understood it properly, at any point of time, if your colleagues are facing any problem, please take the responsibility and make them understand. Okay. I see a lot of people nodding heads, which means they have understood. So make sure that if there is any problem, if they're not in session at the moment, say if maybe after 1 or 2 hours, if there is any problem, any doubt, try to explain them. And if something comes up which cannot be explained, please park it and we'll discuss tomorrow. Okay. I don't want to go forward with another implementation, but please try to implement whatever we have done. That is the first thing. But before that, implement time-based UCA. Okay. So time-based UCA, you need to implement. So I implemented something today morning, and you can see here Wednesday 8 a.m. I believe 8:35. I had configured this. Okay, and I tried to use this run now button, and I found that at exactly 8:35 it triggered this process. Okay, so simple. I was using an intermediate receiving message event, and over here I did the same kind of configuration which you guys saw, which I had already discussed before, which I had showed you today itself. consume message, durable subscription, definitely it has to be enabled. And data mapping, same. Here also we have the same concept of correlation key. So if the correlation key will match, then only the value will be delivered. Same kind of implementation which we did today, do it with the time-based UCA. Okay, so just see whether your UCA gets triggered automatically at that specific time and whether it is able to deliver the message to the receiver process.